Welcome back, gunslingers, to the Silver Screen Podcast OG, where the movies ride tall in the saddle and we see if they shoot straight. I'm your host, Mike, and with me, as always, is my returning right-hand man, DK.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Oh, my word. Yes, that's right. We're asking the big questions like, is Doc Holliday the coolest sidekick in movie history, or just a man with an impressive mustache and a drinking problem? That's because this week we're saddling up for the 1993 Western cult classic Tombstone, a film that gave us Kurt Russell at his steely-eyed best, Val Kilmer delivering one of cinema's great performances, and a whole lot of quotable lines. And we've brought in some backup for this one. Joining us on the dusty trail is today's special returning guest, Adrienne. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be back.
Great. Did you bring your spurs and your six-shooter, or just opinions and a little bit of sass?
No, but I did bring my feathers and my laudanum.
Perfect. That's all you need. So let's grab our hats, pour ourselves a shot of whiskey, and see if Tombstone still makes us say, I'm your Huckleberry. Yes, I had to as well. Sorry. Naturally. So, just to give you a tiny bit of kind of flavour to this and a bit of background, this was a film that Adrienne picked for us to cover on the podcast. She decided to, I presume it's one of your favourites, decided you wanted to do it.
Absolutely.
So obviously got you on for this one. It's a film that I have never seen until, obviously, just now. Before the podcast, I watched it for this. So it's a first-time viewing for me. It's a film that I believe, DK, you definitely have seen before, yes?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, and DK going above and beyond has not only watched this film, but also completely unprompted, as extra credit, watched the Kevin Costner Wyatt Earp that was released in competition around the same time. So yeah, you can give us a little bit of flavour of maybe the bit of what the competition looks like, I guess, DK.
Yeah, just grab a pillow.
So yeah, I mean. Before we jump into, analysing our first experiences and breaking down the film, we normally would start with a behind-the-scenes section. I don't know about you, DK. I've got next to nothing for this, but I can start us off if you want, and then if you've got anything, I can jump over to you.
I've got a little, yeah. The weird thing is, as you're looking for trivia on this thing, it puts mostly trivia about the real-life situation, not so much on the film. But, you go for it, and then I'll...
No problem. I do have bits and pieces under the individual sections like writing and directing and stuff as well that I can share if you haven't already done so. But yeah, I have literally two things for the BTS, but I'll kick us off with that and say, the film is loosely based on real events, as DK said, that took place in the 1880s in southeast Arizona, including the gunfight at the OK Corral and the Earp Vendetta ride. It depicts several Western outlaws and lawmen such as Wyatt Earp, William Brocius, Johnny Ringo, and Doc Holliday. The film was a financial success, and in the Western genre, it ranks number 25 in the list of highest-grossing films since 1979. I don't quite know why they count it since then, but okay. Critical reception was generally positive, with the story, directing, and acting receiving praise. Particularly, Val Kilmer's memorable performance as the hard-drinking Doc Holliday came in for a lot of praise, and the film has, of course, become a cult classic since its release. Not my words, DK, sorry. I know we're not covering it on cult classics, but that's what it said on the Wikipedia page. So, yeah, that's all I've got for now. Over to you.
Val Kilmer, he practiced for a long time, apparently, on his quick draw speed, and gave his character a southern aristocrat accent. The southern accent is an authentic touch, as Holliday was a cousin, although several generations removed, of Margaret Mitchell, who was the author of Gone with the Wind. Now, in 2020, Val Kilmer put an end to the long-standing Hucklebearer debate. He claims the line really was written as I'm your Huckleberry in the script, meaning I'm your man, you've met your match. Kilmer set the record straight in his autobiography entitled, aptly enough, I'm your Huckleberry. Now, Robert Mitchum was signed on originally to star as Old Man Clanton. However, prior to principal photography, he fell from his horse and injured his back, forcing him to quit the part. Instead, Mitchum provides the narration at the beginning and end of the movie. Now, the person who plays Billy Claiborne is actually Wyatt Earp's fifth cousin, who is also called Wyatt Earp. And in almost every close-up throughout the film, Michael Biehn does not blink to apparently portray the wild-eyed, steely ferocity of Johnny Ringo. He finally blinks near the end of the film, indicating that he's lost his nerve in his climactic fatal gunfight with Doc Holliday. George P. Cosmatos liked the setting of the forest for that final shootout between John Henry Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo, as it wasn't the usual dusty street from many westerns. A little blooper here. When Virgil returns to the saloon and collapses after being shot, Kurt Russell accidentally bangs Sam Elliott's head on the bar as he lifts him to laying flat on the floor. Now, the train car on which Virgil and the wives leave after departing Tombstone is the same train car that Wyatt steps off on at the beginning of the movie, which is number 5150, which implies they filmed both scenes at the same time using that train. They also use that train as the background where when Wyatt is shouting his "You tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me" speech. He's standing in front of that train car, again, 5150. The California Welfare and Institutions Code has that number for a person who poses a risk to themselves and or others. Okay. And if one looks closely during the scene where Morgan Earp dies, Wyatt's hands are covered in blood, but it doesn't slide off either onto Morgan's body, nor does it wash off in the pouring rain. It stands as a metaphor for Wyatt's life as a gunslinger, and he can't bid farewell to his blood-stained past, which is obviously something he tries to do in the movie. So that's what I've got so far.
Awesome. That's cool. That was quite a lot of extra flavor, and I didn't know any of that stuff, and I don't think it's any of the stuff that I've got under the little sections either. So hopefully we'll have more to say when we get to those. I definitely know I've got lots to say about the direction that I mentioned to you off air, DK, that we'll get to. So, cool. Well, before we jump into the analysis, then I always like to start by asking, of course, what your first experience was with this movie when you first saw it, and if you can remember how it made you feel at the time and what kind of stuck in your mind. As I said, it's kind of redundant of me to answer this because I saw it a few days ago for the first time. We've lost DK. Okay.
Let me give him a minute.
Give him a minute to sign back in. So as I said, normally I would go around and ask everyone, but it's kind of silly me answering this because you'll get my first impressions when I do my review, since this was my first time. But other than that, Adrienne, this was your pick. So first of all, can you remember the first time you saw it and all of those questions I gave? And can you also tell me why it is you wanted us to cover it? What is it that you particularly love about this that's not too big of a spoiler?
Well, I just really loved Val Kilmer's portrayal. Plus, I have been there. I went to Tombstone 1991. We were staying out at a little dude ranch out there, me and my mom, and there was an excursion, and it was pretty neat to see. So I thought we would talk about the movie.
Awesome. So, so when you first saw it, was it a film that you came away immediately loving, or was there a part particularly? I mean, obviously, other than you said Val Kilmer's performance is something that stuck in your mind, I can kind of see why you would say that. But anything else?
Well, I guess I was a big Val Kilmer fan, not from Top Gun, but I loved him in Willow. Okay, and I just thought he was so great. And then, of course, I saw The Doors. So whenever one of his movies came out, it was kind of a theater thing for me, going to the movies and everything. And I saw this in the movies, and then I went back alone the next day. I'd seen it with people the first day, went back alone the next day and watched it again.
Awesome. Cool.
Yep.
And, there's a massive cast of character actors and sort of big name actors that I recognized. I have to say, as I was going through this, was there anybody other than Val Kilmer that you recognized and sort of went, oh, it's that person, or that stood out maybe as a good performance?
Well, I love Sam Elliott, so that was exciting.
He has the voice for a Western, really, doesn't he? He's got
he really. I just thought his character needed more time, more screen time. He wasn't goofy like Morgan's character. He was Virgil, kind of more stoic, and I just loved him. So.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously there's a lot of quotability to this, and I was thinking of a lot of the quotes in my head, but the only voice that I have in my head the whole time is Sam Elliott's kind of deep voice drawl, because it's perfect for the kind of "yo, I'm going to clean up this town."
Plus, he's got such a good face, and he really does well in the cowboy clothes.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, they all do a really good job. I mean, we'll get into the authenticity that was insisted on, and everything when we get to that point. But,
okay.
Apologies, listeners. We've lost DK for now, but we're going to see if we can get him back, and we'll ask his first impressions if we do. But otherwise, we're just going to plow on myself and Adrienne in the meantime while we hope for the best here. So, I'm going to jump in next to the writing and the plot, which will be the next section. As I always say, we break down the film, or I break down the notes into sections like writing, acting, direction, VFX, etc. But I don't stick rigidly to it if the conversation flows a certain way. You've probably heard this 100 times or more if you're a regular listener, but just to let anybody know. So, starting with the writing and the plot, the film was written by Kevin Jarre. I believe that's how it's pronounced, Jarre. He was also the original director of the film, but he was replaced early in production. More on that later. Kurt Russell worked quickly with producer James Jacks to pare down Jarre's sprawling script, deleting subplots and emphasizing the relationship between Wyatt and Doc. I can kind of see that this might have been a bit like that. And I still think there's a little bit of that. Like, it's a bit unfocused, especially at the start. And there's a lot of stuff going on, shall we say. But, the scene in which Wyatt throws an abusive card dealer out, played by Billy Bob Thornton, from the saloon was to show that Wyatt was a man who used psychology to intimidate people. I didn't know what that scene was for, but I did find it amusing seeing a young Billy Bob Thornton. And supposedly, I will say, Billy Bob Thornton improvised his lines in that scene. He wasn't given a script or any dialogue. He was just told, "Be a bully."
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, God.
So,
yeah, that's funny. And I wonder, like, did he have any, like he said, it's like I'm playing with my brother's kids or something. Like, did he have actual nieces and nephews? And they were all like taken aback. They were taken aback when, our uncle slamming us on TV.
Maybe, who knows? I honestly can't say one way or the other, but I just know, like I said, he wasn't really given anything to do, exact scripting. So it's an interesting one. But again, I'll get into the troubles and everything with the writing and directing later. But
okay.
Yeah. So before I get into the more and more about the writing, I have to say I did have to look up a couple of things. Some of the Western jargon was completely lost on me. I mean, I'm English and old, so naturally this is not something. Well, I say old, maybe young is perhaps the other way to put it. So I don't know all the older lingo. So I'm going to do an impromptu session of teaching Wild West slang for the two things that I had to look up on the internet.
Fun. Okay.
So the first thing that I was confused by early in the film was when they described somebody as to go healed. Yeah. Which I wasn't sure. Apparently that just means carrying a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So armed. That was basically in the scene where the implication is I think it's either Wyatt or Doc basically doesn't need weapons to take on Billy Bob Thornton.
Nope.
It's like he puts the guns down and still kicks the crap out of him basically. So I was like, okay, so don't go healed, meaning don't need a weapon, etc. And the other thing was the phrase to skin that smoke wagon. Mm-hmm. Do you remember hearing that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Apparently it means just
see what happens.
Any ideas what that might mean?
Well, I thought it meant take it out of its holster.
You're exactly right. It means just to draw your pistol and prepare to shoot, because a smoke wagon is a revolver, and to skin it just means to pull it from its holster. So wow. I had no idea. I was completely lost. I heard skin the smoke wagon. I was like, what? So obviously we're starting looking at the writing and the plot. Is there anything in particular that stands out? Particularly, I'm thinking, is there any quotes that immediately spring to your mind? Because I've got a lot that I kind of made note of that I thought were really good.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I'd love to hear.
Oh, no. I mean, obviously the earliest one would be when Wyatt's basically trying to make out that he's retired from all this. And they tell him, you'll have a guilty conscience. And he says, I already got a guilty conscience. Might as well have the money too. Mm-hmm. I just love the badassery, if that's a word, of again when Billy Bob Thornton's getting slapped and he's obviously clearly a coward, he's not doing much, and they just say, are you going to do something or just stand there and bleed? Which I think is pretty cool. And later on when they say very cosmopolitan, saying this sarcastically when they're talking about things, and
well, that's one of his favorite lines of mine. Oh, yes, very cosmopolitan.
Yeah, taking the mic. And when they're talking about like the performance of, I think, is it Faust, and how it reveals, a lady was the source of all the trouble in the first place. And so I think, is it Doc that says, I'll be damned, and then gets the reply, you may indeed if you get lucky.
Yeah, and he says, you may indeed.
if you get lucky. Then later on when he's been told, by the doctor, you might not have long to live. You've got to cut out all the vices and everything. And the woman he's with is just basically trying to seduce him and lighting cigarettes for him.
Right.
And he's, I really think you might be the Antichrist.
I might be the Antichrist.
Yeah. So I love that. And again, the stuff with Wyatt when he's they're questioning him when Josephine first arrives about like, oh, you're not happy in your marriage. Your wife's got this laudanum addiction. And what if a lovely woman came in and it was everything you dreamed of? And, he was actually quite stoic about it. And it's like, I take it back. You're an oak. And then later on when she does basically try to take him out for, the horse ride, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm an oak, all right.
Right.
He's blatantly falling for her. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I've got anything else written down. The idea of him walking on water. I did read somewhere that supposedly is based on I don't know if I would say fact, but certainly the way that it was reported in reality, that he did actually kind of just walk out into the middle of a hail of gunfire and took someone down. And I was like, wow, that's pretty badass.
It is.
And, let's see. I loved the monologue at the end when they've shot and killed Josephine's kind of actor friend. And she kind of talks about, you're all ugly. He was beautiful and you killed him for it. And that's what prompts Billy to basically be like, nah, we've got to have some kind of law and switch sides. And good moments like that, I think, as well. And I mean, other than that, I obviously love the moment when Wyatt kind of goes, tell him, hell's coming. I'm coming and hell's coming with me, etc. And then, obviously, I knew the line, I'm your Huckleberry. I'd heard it, but I didn't realize the context. And so when that actually happens, I didn't know that Doc was going to pop back up, spoiler alert, at the end and kind of say the whole, might have been less ill than I was making out. So when it's,
wow.
Is it Johnny or Johnny Ringo that's waiting? And you're expecting Wyatt to turn up. And it's kind of like, he thinks I might not even be enough to beat him, but you're expecting him to turn up. And then it's Doc that steps out of the shadows and just gives it, I'm your Huckleberry. I fully cheered out loud at that and was like, oh, what a moment. And he flashes the sheriff's badge that he's just been given from Wyatt.
This time it's legal. Exactly. It's funny, because just Michael Bihn's acting when he's kind of taken aback and says, fight's not with you, Holiday. You realize that, he knows he's in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, there's things that I could say about that. In terms of the writing, I think, like I said, it perhaps took a little bit long to get to the points where it really kicked off at the end. It's quite a long movie. And for me, I think it could have done with a bit more focus at the start, maybe, and a bit of trimming. Welcome back, DK. Sorry, I did tell the listeners we kind of lost you for a while there, so we were hoping you were going to come back and join us.
No worries, mate. Yeah,
hopefully you hadn't been taken out by a member of the Clanton gang or whatever.
Yeah, I'm back like Michael Rooker.
Yep, at the end of the film, turning back up and switching sides. So I love that bit as well. I didn't even mention that bit. I was just talking about the writing, but I remember saying to you that as I was busy watching, I spotted this person, and I spotted Michael Rooker for a second, and you were like, oh, don't worry, he comes back. When he did, I was like, oh, it's so cool. He switched sides and everything as well. So awesome.
Yeah, Yondu's on the right side this time.
But he's not Mary Poppins in this film. But no, we were talking a little bit about the writing, but before we were going to get into that, I did ask Adrienne, so I'll ask you now that you're back, if you can remember what was the first time you saw the film and what your initial impressions were. What stood out at that point?
I think the first time I saw it was not long after it was released on video. Yeah, I'm that old.
Wow.
And we rented it as a family and watched it as a family, and I kind of fell in love with it. But it was one of those movies that when I don't know if you ever have this, when you watch it the first time, you love it that much that you're scared to go back to it in case you just with rose-tinted glasses. So for the longest time, I've actually seen the competitor Wyatt Earp more than I've seen this one. So this coming back to it this time, this was strange. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You did say you'd watched. Obviously, you've seen Wyatt Earp a lot more, and you did watch it this time around as well. Is there any kind of differences or anything that stood out? Maybe even similarities that you wanted to kind of bring up to compare?
I mean, so much. There are some. There are similarities. There are parts in this film and in Wyatt Earp that are pretty much interchangeable, such as the funeral after the OK Corral, the kind of thing about the shootout itself, certain events like Morgan being shot while playing billiards and Virgil, that kind of thing. They do touch, they touch upon Maddie's eccentricities and addiction to laudanum in this. But when it comes to the Costner, the Wyatt Earp, it's a very small part. The Tombstone itself is a very small part of the actual story. So I think a lot of things are a lot more expounded upon, and so it doesn't play as greater part. I'll put it that way. It is kind of slow going compared to this one.
That's fair enough. I did read that, actually. I read, because I just quickly looked it up on Wikipedia. I've obviously never seen it because I hadn't seen this either, Tombstone. When I looked it up, it said basically, a lot of the criticism was that it's a bit too wide-reaching, and it does start literally with Wyatt Earp's childhood and goes into all of that, and it's more of a life story biography of him than the events specifically, as you said. So that's what I think a lot of people had an issue with, because I know that it didn't do anywhere near as well as Tombstone did.
No, I can see why. I mean, like this, it had a fantastic cast, Bill Pullman and Dennis Quaid and Gene Hackman. I do have to give props, even though I'm not a big fan of him in general. I do have to give props to Dennis Quaid, who produced Doc Holliday in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And to get the effect of being ill, lost such an incredible amount of weight. I mean, I don't know if you've seen photos, but it looks like Christian Bale in The Machinist.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
But even so, I've got to give the performance to Val Kilmer in this one. So
Oh yeah, I'm going to touch on that when I get to the acting, and that was what Adrienne said. The primary thing that she took away from the first viewing was Val Kilmer's performance, but she was already a fan from like Willow and The Doors and other films he'd done. So yeah, it makes sense.
I could say a little thing about your Daisy if you do.
Yeah. What about that?
Okay, so it means someone is the best, the most accomplished, or the most marvelous in their class or their particular situation.
Awesome. So it kind of was like actual known slang, I suppose. Yeah,
that's a thing. Yeah, apparently it's an Old West slang. Fashion. It was considered a fashionable term at the time. Apparently.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I assumed it would be kind of accurate, and I will say, since we're talking about the writing, and I'm going to sound completely ridiculous, but I had no real idea that this was like real people at real events that this was fully based on.
Really?
I know next to nothing about American kind of history, especially the Old West era. So, yeah, because I was saying to DK before I started watching the movie, it kind of had an uphill battle because I'm not a huge fan of Westerns. There are some that I like, but they're kind of a small in number. So it's things like The Searchers or True Grit. Or, the occasional Western that will have a twist, like a sci-fi Western will appeal to me, like Firefly, for example, or something like that. Or, I mean, to an extent, Star Wars is kind of a sci-fi Western. But other than that, it's kind of, I don't love a lot of the more popular. And, I mean, there are hundreds of Western movies.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, I mean, I didn't really know. I think the extent of my knowledge of this being real was the Doctor Who story, The Gunfighters. DK, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, not exactly renowned for it. Yeah, indeed, Star Trek as well, yeah. So, but I just never, for some reason I feel stupid now, but I was like, I didn't realize these were real people. This was real events that happened, and there was an actual, I figured it was just pop culture stuff, not reality. But
it's all still there. Like people take tours of Tombstone, and Graveyard is still there, and the saloon, the Dragoon Saloon, it's all there.
Yeah, well, obviously I know that
interesting.
Now.
Yeah.
And I did know about Billy the Kid from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as well, Mr. the Kid, obviously. So this was kind of new to me. But in terms of the writing, like I said, I didn't really have a lot of notes other than I went through a lot of the quotes that I love. Is there anything you wanted to mention, DK, quote-wise, that you loved about this before we get to favourite quote?
No. I'll let you go for this one, mate.
No, I've already been through all the ones I liked. I'm sure it's all the ones everybody always brings up. But so yeah, moving on to a little bit of criticism, which is what I was doing before you got back. I was just saying to Adrienne, if I'm being hypercritical, I loved when the film kind of seemed to kick into high gear, but it just happened for me a tiny bit too late, and I think it could have been trimmed at the start and edited a little better maybe, and had a bit more focus, because I think once Morgan gets killed and it all goes crazy, I was like, this should have been the movie, because this is when I'm fully like now like on board, locked in, invested, and it seemed to hit another gear. Not that the rest of it was bad, and there's things I liked. As I said, I did like kind of seeing young Billy Bob Thornton get smacked around and thoroughly embarrassed. And
come on, chubby Billy Bob.
But I did appreciate. I just love the way he's so badly, thoroughly embarrassed, and he keeps coming back for more. Because we've all known people like that. Like I said, he's already been given the whole like they're gonna do something or stand there and bleed and being kicked out, and he still comes back with a shotgun. And then, as we said off air, DK, the way that he's just kind of like, "Oh, I forgot you were there. Did you want to, just leave that gun and get away, get out of here?" And I was like, "Wow, that guy is just thoroughly shamed." So I didn't appreciate that kind of part.
I know you're going to disagree with me, but I could have done with less Dana Delaney.
Oh, maybe, but yeah, I love Dana Delaney in general. So that's naturally going to be my reaction. Do you know why I love Dana Delaney and what my first experience was of hers? It's so obvious.
Go on.
It's because she voices Lois Lane in the DC animated universe.
Oh, God, that's funny. Of course.
I did not know that.
Starting in Superman, the animated series. So it was her voice I fell in love with first before I ever saw what she looked like. Then I saw her in other things and movies and Desperate Housewives and stuff. Very attractive woman, though, I will say, and I have gotten plenty of notes on that about like she gets all the best outfits and the best fits, so to speak, and pretty cool character. I can kind of see why Kurt Russell would fall for it. Though I don't love that he basically just abandons his wife. It does feel a little bit like the film is kind of like make her look really unsympathetic, so that it's not really like a dickish move when he runs off with another woman. So,
that's the one thing I do appreciate about Wyatt Earp, because Mattie wasn't actually his wife.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
They were just kind of attached, and she kept calling him his wife, and Wyatt Earp were just like. It sounds awful, but Wyatt Earp were just kind of keeping her around.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Well, different times, I suppose. But yeah, that gives it a very different kind of flavor, I suppose, as well. But I think that's probably more to do with the fact that you have that scene early in Tombstone where it's like all of the boys and all of their wives standing together, looking in the mirror and kind of like, look, we're so happy. And as soon as that happens, it's just kind of like, oh, you're all going to die. Or at least a majority of you, clearly. You don't have scenes.
This is going to be the best Christmas Wolford's ever had.
I mean, yeah. But yeah. So, I mean, this is, like I said, I will say I loved a lot of this film, though, and the writing, I think, was brilliant, especially knowing that it's based on real-life stuff and knowing that Kurt Russell had to pare down a lot of what was already a very sprawling script, which, as I said, I think you can kind of see remnants of. So yeah, I mean, I've talked enough. Is there anything else about the writing that you guys wanted to bring up? And I'll start with you, Adrienne. Anything you wanted to mention that you like or that stands out about the writing?
You mentioned it already.
Kind of brought it all up. Oh, what about you, DK?
No, I think it. As I say, other than the Dana Delaney stuff, because every time it got to that, it was a bit, oh, here we go again.
No, I liked it.
But other than that, I dug it. But like you said. And I don't know if it's, again, because I've not watched it in years, I thought it was going to kick into a higher gear long before it did. And I don't know if it was just me misremembering, but yeah, I can just remember it being a kick-ass movie, and it seemed a lot slower on this viewing. I mean, obviously it's not slow as Wyatt, but yeah.
No, but I can see what you mean, because I could imagine the first time you've seen it, if you're not like reviewing it for a podcast type thing, the overriding memory would be the last kind of 45 minutes. And, you know, the kind of pace that has and the action and the way that it kind of does all the cool things. But then, as you said, when you're actually watching it and you realize, well, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes and 45 minutes of it are like you said, when it finds a second gear. So there's an hour and a half before that where it's not bad, but certainly not as intense, shall we say. So yeah, I see what you mean with that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the only other note that I've got, which I just found here, was that it's a bit rich of Virgil when he basically, he finds out he's going to lose his arm after everything that's gone wrong. And he kind of forces, he takes it off and forces Wyatt to leave. And I don't want to see you right now. And I'm like, it's a bit rich of you to blame Wyatt for your shit. You were the one that was like, we're banning all guns and I'm going to be the sheriff. And like, it's all his fault, dude. He didn't want to do it.
And it's only 5 minutes after he came back to the bar and went, Wyatt, flump.
Exactly. Anyway, so yeah. So is that everything for the writing? Shall we move to the acting now for the next section? Right. I don't have lots, but I've got bits and pieces. So I've got nothing on Kurt Russell because it's more to do with when we hit kind of directing, and I've talked about him adapting the script with writing. Val Kilmer, of course, we know, played Doc Holliday famously. Kilmer's quoted as saying, "One way or another, Americans have to deal with the West and its glorious, sordid, sadistic past. We fought lawlessness, try saying that word 10 times fast, to create an even more lawless law, one that excused and perpetuated genocide. Even today, this gun-obsessed nation that we love remains mired in a dilemma centered on pistols and rifles with romantic ties to our murderous past. We love Westerns, we learn everything from Westerns, and yet learn nothing from them. We continue killing ourselves in an unconscionable way. That's why when I had the chance to play Doc Holliday, I grabbed it." And yeah, that was from I'm Your Huckleberry in 2020, that biography you talked about. And yeah, I mean, not to get deep for a second, but he's kind of right, isn't he? I mean,
nailed it.
Just nailing I mean, it's still something we're seeing happening far too much. I mean, I could say, there's been yet another school shooting, but that doesn't narrow down when we were recording, sadly, because that could be any bloody week. Yeah. And it just keeps happening, this love of, as you said, firearms. And I do think he's right, unless America kind of comes to terms with the romanticizing of this in the past and, the more or less genocide of the Native Americans, then it's just going to be an issue.
If you flick back, I mean, we're just kind of as guilty of it as anyone, because when we look back on our review of John Wick, we were saying it at that point. It's hugely entertaining, but he's popping people off like they're smarties kind of thing, and it's just this glee that people get when watching these things or watching the lobby scene in The Matrix, and it's a sad state of affairs. But that's kind of where we are. But we still realize that some of us on the political spectrum should do something to limit these things. Because, when you have people that actually believe they're in the Matrix or believe that they're fucking John Wick, that's when you have the problem. And nobody's addressing it. So, yeah, he's spot on. He's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. But I think another kind of important thing to note there is the difference between fiction and reality, in that these are, as I said, which I didn't know previously, these are real events. And this is idolizing real people that were actually doing this, as opposed to, like you said, most sane people, not to get too offensive, would know we're not in the Matrix and would know they're not John Wick. And this is a, fantasy. It's about as real as a Tom and Jerry cartoon. But when you start hero worshipping people and not recognizing the issues with, the lawlessness of gun violence and things like that, then it does get a little sketchy. And I did appreciate that bit, as I said, when Virgil basically, to try and establish some kind of law, just says, like, look, I'm not even saying you can't have guns, just don't wander around town with guns, because it's accidents waiting to happen, Andy. You're always going to get some nutters like that one guy who's shooting into the sky randomly, and they're all like, are you going to go and do something about this or what,
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some kind of uncomfortable resonance, I think, even in that as well. So, sorry to steamroller you a bit there, Adrienne. Did you have any thoughts on any of that?
No, I'm loving it. I'm love listening. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have any other things about the writing. Oh, sorry, the acting. Any quotes from the actors? Did you have anything, Tiki, or should we just talk about what we thought of the acting?
I could listen to Sam Elliott read the phone book.
We said
we did say that, didn't we? I was saying that I think Sam Elliott really held the movie together in a lot of spots, and that he needed a bunch of more lines because he's just so great. I love the side eye that he gives Doc Holliday when they're catching up, at the beginning. He's so good.
Yeah. He's a fantastic performer. Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, I want Sam Elliott around now. If he told me everything were going to be all right, I'd just leave him.
Absolutely.
Well, sadly, I think he is a registered Republican and a bit of a, political.
Oh, he's not. Well, he is, but he's not a wide-eyed loon.
Okay.
He's against
fair enough.
the certain movement, shall we say.
Okay, fair enough. And like everybody else in the world, I loved Val Kilmer's performance here. I thought it was fantastic. And I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of Val Kilmer, but I've never seen him hit this level. In fairness, I've never seen The Doors or Willow.
I've seen a lot of Val Kilmer stuff, and I'll be completely honest with you, I've never been a big fan of the man himself. Yes, but his performances, not so much. I watched. I'm going to get some flack for this, but I watched The Saint a few weeks ago. My God, it was like watching a masterclass given by Tommy Wiseau. Yeah, in this, I can't fault him. I can't fault him. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he is. I loved him in this movie so much. He really made it for me.
I'll take some of the heat off you and tell you that I actually think he gives a really good performance in Batman Forever. Sorry.
Even Tommy Lee Jones is giving a bad performance in Batman Forever, so it's kind of a low bar.
I liked him in Top Gun, liked him in Batman Forever, but I've never seen something on this particular level of a performance.
Yeah,
kind of got lost in the performance.
I do have to give a shout out to Top Secret. If you've never seen Top Secret, watch that. That was my first experience of Val Kilmer, and I don't think he'll ever give a better performance.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I have seen that. It's a very funny movie. But the only other thing that I wanted to say is that I have to say, despite not necessarily loving every one of his acting things like you, I liked the man himself. I think he was a really nice dude, basically. And so it was really hard for me to watch the scenes of Doc Holliday dying because obviously Val Kilmer isn't with us. So it had an extra kind of layer of poignance. And I did shed a little tear for the actor as well as the character. Well, it's kind of obviously based on a real person as well. So.
Yeah, same with Bill Paxton.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's so many in this movie that we've lost, unfortunately, over the years. I mean, much as I didn't love his politics, again, Charlton Heston turns up in the movie, and he's good in a very limited role, So
yeah, the weird thing is, I didn't know, I couldn't say what kind of person he was, but for some reason, I could never take to Powers Booth, but I think he works in this really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think he works quite well. I mean, he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's all you need to do to win the And I mean, like you said, Bill Paxton has always been a loss, So there's an awful lot of people that were no longer with us. And I was saying to Adrienne, just so many people that you recognize that I didn't realize were in it. And then you go through and you're like, oh, I spotted the people we've mentioned, but also Stephen Lang as Ike Clanton, who you'll know probably more nowadays, listeners, for the Avatar movies, the main villain in that. I think that's the same person, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is the same guy. Yeah.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah. Stephen Lang.
He's Ike Clanton in the movie.
Completely unrecognizable. And I just thought he was such a ham. He's so great. Law dog don't go around here, law dog. Like that's all these really great quotable lines.
Actually, real soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want the rest of the podcast to just be Adrienne acting out the movie now.
Of course.
But yeah, no. So there's that, and I already mentioned to you again, DK, as I was watching off air, Baby Sandman, Thomas Hayden Church, as Billy Clanton turning up. Like, what?
Yeah. And I forget his name. I just know him as some dude from Sex and the City.
John.
He was at the start, and then he reappears at the end. And I did find that with some of the acting, it was just like it's almost like it's like as if they were there on certain days and not on other days. So yeah, we'll get for this scene. But we'll forget about
again when I get into what happened with the writing and directing and stuff. You'll probably see a reason why that is, and it wasn't the most clean cut shoot, shall we say, put it that way. So you're probably right. The chances are it was just a matter of what can we get on what day and piece together into a workable movie. Yeah,
I'm surprised it's not got Alan Smithy.
No, well, I mean, again, we'll get into it when we hit directing, which we haven't hit yet, but I have a lot to say about that. Okay. But no, obviously, Jason Priestley is in this as well. Michael Biehn, you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. Who else? Let's see. Michael Rooker, you've mentioned as well. Frank Stallone is in this. Sylvester Stallone's brother. Yeah, he's Ed Bailey, apparently.
All right.
Yeah. I mentioned to you already, I was quite taken aback when I saw Billy Zane playing Mr. Fabian.
Yeah.
Not least because it's not a very Billy Zane role, yeah.
But he was such a pretty boy back then.
Yeah, totally. And you've mentioned again John Corbett, who Sex and the City fans will know as Aiden, playing Johnny Barnes. Terry O'Quinn, you might recognize from Lost, or if you're one of us, from Star Trek The Next Generation. Plays the mayor and... The Rocketeer. I still haven't seen that movie. That's one for the list.
He plays Howard Hughes.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, so he's the mayor and the publisher of the Tombstone Epitaph. And I think, again, he's such a small role, but every time he's on screen, I go like, good performance, and I recognize that guy. And I do think Robert Mitchum, as much as he was kind of, tagged for a bigger role initially, he's really good as the narrator. And I especially felt like his narration at the end, going through like what's normally a very cliche thing of like, this is what happened to this character, and this character was found years later. And
I like that, though. That was neat.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And even at the start, the way that it starts with, it almost starts like it's newsreel footage that the narrator's giving, and it's in black and white, and then the way that it explodes into widescreen when the movie starts, which is directing, I suppose. But oh wow, that's amazing. And other than that, the acting note that I've got is that I was impressed. Dana Delaney does her own singing in the movie, and she's really good. Yeah. But I think she's great in the movie. I think she kind of sells the kind of character you would fall in love with, even if she's a bit too perfect, I guess, in that regard. There's a lot of the kind of and there is a tiny bit of sexism in the movie's writing, if I'm honest, the way that it's like women are either your damnation or a prize to be won, or when they have a role in the movie. But I can't really comment on that as much as perhaps you'd be able to, Adrienne, if I was to ask what you thought about the role of women in the movie.
Yeah, they didn't really have much focus. I was hoping we would learn more like about the teacher whose face had been sliced, when she grabbed the kid off the street when the cowboys were coming through. I thought maybe we would get more background on some of these, but nope, they were all like you said, prizes or spouses or prostitutes. So there's that.
Yeah, but no, I did think Dana, though, was really good in them. I don't think there was too much of her, but I thought she was exactly the kind of like wish fulfillment, dream woman kind of fantasy ideal that you don't find in real life, and probably wasn't really, what the real person was like. But, you're watching a movie, you kind of suspend disbelief, I guess. And
I'm sorry I keep bringing it up. Feel free to tell me to shut the F up. But another little background, the character in this, I can't remember his name, the bowler hat dude, mustache, who came out and said, I'm arresting you all.
They all have a mustache, dude. That doesn't.
Yeah, he was very prim and proper. He was talking to Dana Delaney in the bar.
The guy that played the sheriff, Behan?
Behan, that's it.
Okay.
In Wyatt Earp, he's played by Mark Harmon. And when she comes into town, she's already his girlfriend, and he treats her awfully. He's like showing his friends naked photos of her and all that kind of stuff. And Wyatt Earp actually shows her some basic common decency, and that's why she's kind of attracted to him.
Yeah, I did kind of get that sense even in this movie, not as that extreme, but you got the sense that like the man she was with, it was more of a convenience thing, and she didn't want to be with Behan, and obviously he then kind of switches sides, or he's on the bad guy side, I should say, from the start, and wants to kind of see the Earps dealt with because he knows that Wyatt basically has caught the eye of his woman. So, yeah. Is it her as well that actually, and this is such a weird kind of reference, but it came straight to my head, when she sees Wyatt Earp and she's like, because he's such a gentleman and a lawman, and she's like, oh, I want one. Yep. I was like, that's the same line that Tony Stark gives when he first sees Scarlett Johansson in Iron Man 2. And it was all I could think of. I was like, was that a Tombstone reference?
That's funny.
Oh, I'm such a nerd. But no, the only other note, I kind of wanted to touch on this because it's writing and acting. But I was really impressed with the kind of subplot with Bill Paxton's character when Wyatt's telling him, taking a life is not peachy and everything, and it changes you forever. And then when Paxton does do that to kind of save somebody, and he even says to Wyatt later on, he doesn't just disregard it. He's sitting there and saying, like, you were right. It isn't like you imagine. And it's not like, it's not great. It's horrible. And it does change you. And I was like, oh, wow, this is, for a Western, this is quite deep. And I like that it's dealing with consequences. As we talked about earlier, it's not just a question of, oh, it felt so good to shoot and kill that bad guy kind of thing. It's like, no, you're a murderer. You will, it will change you. Is there anything else, Adrienne, about the acting that we haven't mentioned? Anyone else that we haven't brought up?
We did already kind of touch on Billy Zane being up there and taking that stage by storm. Just his Henry V speech. I just loved it. And I love Jason Priestley's reaction to it. And I remember sitting there in the theater and looking at this skinny kid with these glasses and going, now, why does that guy look familiar? Didn't realize later till it was him. But, you were talking about that early footage where it's all kind of sepia and stuff. A lot of that is original footage, but they did have that great few seconds of Doc Holliday, of Kilmer walking through as Doc Holliday. So, like, they made, some of that all-time footage with him. That's pretty cool.
It gives the authenticity and kind of...
Yeah, sure. But all of a sudden there's one of our guys, like, oh, it's obviously it's real.
Yeah. That early scene was one of the ones that I didn't really see. I'm sure there probably is a thematic reason, but that scene with the kind of wedding and the cowboys arriving and killing everyone, I don't get what this scene's doing here, and I could kind of do without it, to be perfectly honest. Other than introducing Michael Rooker as a bad guy that then turns tail when he comes back. But,
well, I suppose for like folks like maybe if somebody grew up in northern England or something, might not know that it's right on the border with how closely it ties into Mexico and Mexican culture.
Right.
So that was probably why. And of course, we got to know right away that these cowboys are bad dudes.
Who's bad? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say really that we haven't touched on, except I said, we didn't really mention Kurt Russell, but I think he's always reliable, and I liked his performance a lot in here. But I don't think it's any better or worse than any other Kurt Russell performance. I think he's always great, and he's great in this. So what else can you say?
Because of the relative period in which this was filmed, every time I heard Kurt Russell go, Jesus, I picture Jack Burton.
I knew you were going to mention either that or like Snake Plissken or one of those iconic characters.
Yeah.
So he's kind of, his star power is overpowering, but I think he was lost in the role not as much as Val Kilmer, but I wasn't ever like, oh, it's Kurt Russell. I believed it was Wyatt Earp and was fine with it. And it was a good leading man type performance, like I said. I don't think it was as good as Val Kilmer's performance, but they wouldn't necessarily have been competing, I guess, anyway. So, yeah. Cool. So shall we move to the direction then? Oh, this is where I have a lot of interesting information. So the directing is credited to George P. Cosmatos. The film, as I said, was supposed to be screenwriter Kevin Jarre's first job as a director, but he was quickly overwhelmed by the job, failed to get needed shots, and fell behind the shooting schedule. A month into filming, he was fired by producer Andrew Wagner and replaced with Cosmatos. Michael Biehn, a close friend of Jarre, considered quitting, but he recalled feeling that the director Cosmatos, quote, had no understanding or appreciation of the screenplay. By the time of Cosmatos' arrival, though, all the actors had stayed on board. The new director brought a demanding, hard-nosed sensibility to the set, which led to conflicts with some of the crew members, most famously with cinematographer William Freiker. Kurt Russell has stated that it was he and not Cosmatos who directed the film, as Jarre's departure led to the studio's request. Russell stated that Cosmatos was brought in as a, quote, ghost director, as a frontman, because Russell did not want it to be known that he was directing. Co-star Val Kilmer has supported Russell's statements about working heavily behind the scenes and stating that Russell, quote, essentially directed the film, but stopped short of saying that Russell did the actual directing. Michael Biehn stated that Russell never directed him personally, which certainly isn't sour grapes or anything, I'm sure. And Cosmatos was highly focused on accurate historical detail, including the costumes, props, customs, and scenery to give them authenticity. All the mustaches in the movie were real, except John Tenney's, who played Sheriff Behan. He had to be clean-shaven for a prior project, and thus his is the only fake mustache in the whole movie. So, fascinating facts indeed. Did you have anything else to add, TK, to that?
No, that's pretty comprehensive, mate.
Yeah, I was shocked to hear about Kurt Russell essentially directing the movie. I'm sure there's probably a lot more truth in that than certainly Michael Biehn would like to admit. And just like I said, you can kind of see what I meant by a troubled production. The fact that it started with Kevin Jarre, he was, let go. Then it was a while, presumably with Russell doing the directing while they waited. And then Cosmatos brought in as a studio figurehead. And he was maybe more focused on historical detail and performances and the like. And just fascinating. I'd love to have been on set to see what was actually happening, or maybe interview Kurt Russell sometime and ask exactly what it was he was doing and what was, because I would have insisted on a blooming credit if it were me, to be honest with you. But never mind. So what was I going to say? So did you guys have anything about the direction that stood out that you wanted to mention before I get into my notes?
No, go ahead.
No, go for it, dude.
No, well, I've already mentioned I like I said, the way the intro kind of smashes to widescreen after what looks like newsreel footage. Love all the gorgeous cinematography, the way the sunsets are filmed, but that's kind of common in Westerns. But it does always look gorgeous, and it really does here as well. More than once, I think it's at the start of the film. It's happening when the horse riding takes place with Josephine and Wyatt, and obviously towards the end. So I loved all of that. Like I said, I loved any scene with Dana Delaney because they do kind of make her look the romantic heroine with the direction as well. The movie has warm lighting throughout, and what's called chiaroscuro, the use of kind of light and shadows to do a lot of cool stuff. Especially, I already mentioned the way that Doc Holliday steps out of a shadow when you're not expecting him to be there at the end, which made me cheer because I didn't see it coming. There's a famous pan to a gun under the table at an early scene when they're at, I think they're doing some gambling or something, and it's when, I don't even know who it is. Somebody comes in. It's the guy who's comes in and they say they don't like him because he speaks Latin and whatever else. And they're seemingly calm, but like I said, the way the camera pans shows you the gun under the table pointing at him, and I was like, I love all of that kind of stuff. I liked when the gunfight at the OK Corral happens. It does the really cheesy thing, but it really worked. Of like, there's a noise and it turns out to be a kid playing because you immediately jump thinking, "Oh crap, what's that?" And it's just a kid playing something, and I was like, "Oh man, you got me." That really does work. Love obviously the face off, the way that they're all focusing on the eyes when they're about to draw. Again, it's very traditional Western tropes, but it works. The ominous lightning was a bit on the nose when everything's, when shit starts hitting the fan, but again, it works, I guess. You kind of forgive it. I am wondering if that was special effects as opposed to, I'm guessing it wasn't an actual lightning storm, but if it was, fair enough. One thing that I didn't love was the really jarring slow-mo when Morgan gets shot at the pool table, because it goes so weird. Was I the only one that felt so?
No, I picked up on that this time. It felt out of place. It felt like they'd not shot enough.
Yeah, maybe, or that they just thought, it didn't have the impact if you played it in real time because these things are kind of fast and shocking, and so instead they had to kind of make a meal out of it. But it just makes it come across jerky and bizarre and a bit surreal, and I didn't love that. I guess that's all. A couple of things that I loved on, I guess the kind of direction, or they might be the actor's choice. I love when is it Wyatt cuts the guy's face with the spur of his boot? I was like, that is just awesome. That is so badass.
Oh god,
and, just so many cool slow-mo shots. The heat haze camera effect is good, and the rest of it I think is just I can't really say much else. Just great directing touches that I liked in a lot of places, and whether it's whoever it was that's responsible for it. I think the acting, the actors directing in terms of their performances must have been good because they all give good performances, but there's also a lot of great, like I said, cinematography, visuals, lighting, and things like that. I couldn't really find many faults except that one scene where, as you said, DK, maybe they just didn't have enough coverage or they wanted to give it more impact or something, and so it comes off a bit weird. Anything that you guys wanted to bring up from that then? Or
No, again, you've pretty much covered it.
Yeah. I was keeping an eye out because it's the first time I'd seen it, so I was like, I'll keep an eye. And again, direction, if it's not terrible, doesn't tend to stand out too badly. But there were things I know I loved the look of. What about you, Adrienne?
I love just the grittiness, all the dust, all the grit. You can just tell that, the horses weren't all fancy. They had dirt and dust on them and stuff, and I love that about the scenes. Just. That would be like what it would be like, I guess, to shoot so much in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that kind of leads us to the next bit, which is the VFX production design. And I've only got a couple of things to say for that. First of all, apparently 2 locations were used to make the town of Tombstone look bigger. I don't know what they are. I presume one of them is the actual Tombstone. And I just have the note that I love the set design. I love the way that they've built this kind of old West town, and it looks huge and sprawling, and it looks authentic. It doesn't, you're never thinking, oh, I'm not in this century, or you spot a car somewhere or a can of Pepsi or something. So, which you'd be surprised happens more often than not, including in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So, but yeah, so I loved all the set design and everything. Like I said, it's an underrated thing when it comes to they must have had to build basically 2 towns worth of Old West things from scratch because. Yeah, I mean, it was the 90s, not the 1890s.
Right. I just loved like the Pharaoh table and the poker table, like how people that are collectors of stuff must have just loved seeing like all this old time money and the different coins and
definitely,
how everything was set up. I loved all those sets.
Yeah, and I loved seeing things that I would never have considered, like what the kind of theater would have looked like in an Old West town. And I was like, of course it wouldn't. You did have it, but what would it look like? And so seeing that, I was really fascinated by it, as you said. And even little details, like you said, like the kind of the way the guns look and the intricate details on some of them and patterns and stuff is really cool. And
that shot of Wyatt's long gun. He takes out when he's decided it's time to get involved. But I would have enjoyed more scenes in the opium den. Wouldn't that have been cool? I mean, there were only maybe 2. I thought we should have more opium den shots.
I can't say I noticed one way or the other, to be honest. That was probably
you didn't know? Yeah, well, that would have been where like the guy, Curly Bill comes out and he's looking at his hands and everything. He's totally high because he had been in there smoking in the opium den.
See, I'm really slow with a lot of these things, obviously. So people are going to be laughing at my lack of knowledge of old Western tropes, I guess. But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Where she probably would have gotten her laudanum and such.
Yeah, well, she kept on just getting bottles of it off people and being asked, "Is that the same bottle or is it something?" I just get headaches. Shut up.
Right, leave me alone. You're giving me a headache. Yeah. Where's my laudanum?
Oh, man. Exactly. And obviously, I mean, like, costuming, authentic outfits and things goes without saying. And like I already mentioned, Dana Delaney's outfits throughout are just gorgeous. Anything else about the VFX production design that you guys thought of or wanted to bring up?
I liked actually Joanna Pacula's costumes, playing Kate. With the red and the black and the feathers and, all that stuff. I thought she was great. She didn't get enough credit.
I didn't really want to bring that up for fear of looking really pervy, but yes, you are.
But I mean, just designing for her,
Yeah.
They got to do different stuff, and I just thought that was great. Well, Kate, you're not wearing a bustle. How lewd.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a great scene at the start as well when it turns out she's kind of working with him.
Yeah, she's ready to go. She's the brains behind it all.
Awesome. Brilliant. Anything, DK, that you wanted to bring up?
No, mate. Go for it.
Cool. Well, the next thing then would be the music and sound, which I actually do have a few notes for, because I think it's actually surprisingly important in this movie, music and sound. So I like the way that it's got a kind of Western score of its own. Which is, it's impactful. It underscores all the right moments. It gets romantic and nostalgic when it's focusing on either the kind of, the relationship between Josephine and Wyatt, or even the old nostalgia of the family being together and things like that. And I mean, let's see. It seems to have I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems to have its own theme, which is played in different ways depending on the scene. So it's like a regular theme, then it sounds more adventurous when they're riding off, and then it sounds sad at a sad moment, but it's the same thing, just played differently. And I never normally spot that, but I think I did on this occasion. Let's see, I spotted a few standards being used, like Dance Macabre or Camptown Races, songs that I presume are public domain, but it's kind of always cool to hear stuff like that as well. It adds a bit of reality, I guess. So yeah. No, that's all good, I think. And of course, the the scene of Thomas Hayden Church when he's being very uneducated and talking about Frederick fucking Chopin, which again was a moment that caused me to laugh out loud, I think. So yeah, anything occur to you about the music, DK, or have I mentioned it already?
You've pretty much done it. That carried that motif through, and I did appreciate that.
Yeah. I've got a note under music, so I presume it must have been a musical scene, but my memory's failing me, which is the scene about, we don't want any trouble here, not in any language. Johnny Ringo's an educated man. Now I really hate him. And I said, oh, the note I have it is because I said it's a really tense scene, so the music's barely there. As Doc kind of takes the mick out of his gun twirling and they're kind of facing off. And I guess, it's a measuring contest of some kind. And I was like, ooh, I like this because there's slight music, but it's just faded enough to build up the tension. So I seem to have understood my own note. Alrighty then. So the next order of business would be to throw open to all you other hardworking cowpokes in our audience. And we're going to throw over to our audience response section. I always put out a little prompt on social media asking what you think of the movies we're going to be reviewing here on Silver Screen Original. And maybe a few prompts and questions to try and get some reaction as well. We have some responses, not as many as I'd like. So please, if you do see our response, audience response prompts, do jump in and let us know your thoughts on the movie. We really do enjoy hearing from you, and whether it's positive or negative, we will read out your 2 cents on the movie. And yes, please share your thoughts. You're a daisy if you do. And so with that plea handled, I'm going to jump straight in and say that from Blue Sky, Mandy Geek Collection has sent the message. I think this movie is very good. It's a Western that does justice to the genre. It's a movie that has a good rhythm and unfolds well. From the Facebook group Cult Cinema and TV, Al Winter says, it's good, not the best in my opinion, but a fun flick. Fair enough. Over on Blue Sky, Bryce, level 36, looks like he's either put some dialogue or a bunch of quotes. It just says, is that Old Dog Trey? Kind of sounds like Old Dog Trey to me. Pardon? Stephen Foster. Oh, Susanna, Camptown Racers. Stephen Stinkin' Foster. Yes, well, this happens to be a Nocturne. A which? Frederick fucking Chopin. He then says, in vino veritas, age quod agis, credat juderes appella non ego, eventus stultorum magister, in passi requiescat. Come on, boys, we don't want any trouble here, not in any language. That's Latin, darling. Evidently, Mr. Ringo's an educated man. Now I really hate him. Thomas Labernick, our friend Tommy, says, absolutely fantastic movie. That's just from my personal Facebook there. From the Facebook group Northeast Retro Den, or NERD, Ross Manning says, quite possibly one of the greatest ensembles I've ever seen in a cast. Kilmer, Russell, Bean, Elliott, Paxton, Thornton. It's just phenomenal. Even today, if someone new at work asks if my name is Ross, I always respond with, that's the rumor, in a thick southern drawl. Tommy, by the way, also gives it 8.5 out of 10. It was the score that he left on a different Facebook post of mine, but it is for this movie. Our friend Lady Vian, hello, says, I just saw it for the first time after Val Kilmer's death. I know, very sad. I think it had highs and lows, but an extraordinary cast. I will admit that I fell asleep during the last bit, but I think that has more to do with me than it does the film itself. Are there pacing issues? Maybe. However, the performances alone are enough to carry this film and make it worth a viewing or two. This, I believe, is from Threads. G500BAF says, I thought it was utter shite. And then rather hilariously, immediately following that, Chris Colucci.ny says, 5 out of 5, easily up there with the Magnificent Seven, Original and Unforgiven. You going to do something or just stand there and bleed? So, I think that's all the feedback we had on Tombstone. So thank you for those people who did share. I would say mixed bag, but I think there's only really the one dissenter among those. So seems to be quite popular. So, just remains to be seen what we think of it. And that's going to be the next bit of business. So off we go. I'm going to move to the favorite character moment in line. Before I do, is there anything either of you guys wanted to mention that I haven't brought up that you think is notable?
No, I'd love to move on to favorite characters. I don't know if you guys can guess who mine is.
I think you probably can. So as I said, on the cult classics, on the cinema classics and regular silver screens, the ones that I tend to host, I always like to ask favorite character moment in line. So I'm going to go around and we may as well get them all at once from each of us individually. And we will start with you, Adrienne. First of all, who's your favorite character, as if we don't know?
Right. Doc Holliday. I think my favorite line is from the very beginning where he says, why, Ed Bailey, we cross?
Again, just act out the movie. This is going to be
right. And he says, are we not friends anymore? If we're not friends, I just don't think I could bear it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, this guy's good. Yeah, he's so great.
He has that charm, definitely.
Yeah, he really does. Got that Georgia thing going on, but an aristocratic Southern Georgia from that time, you know. Yeah, good stuff.
Definitely. And do you have a favorite moment or scene?
Well, I think the Latin, where he's doing all his Latin scenes with Michael Biehn, and I always wonder, like, how many times did they have to go through that and practice all these battling it out in Latin, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
I did briefly look up because you can find out what they're saying to each other in Latin, but it's basically just nonsense. I mean,
it's not nonsense, though. I mean, I have it all here in case you want me to read it.
Did you want to go for it then?
Sure.
Isn't the last one rest in peace?
Yeah, it is. The last one is rest in peace. So he starts with Doc Holliday starts with in vino veritas, meaning in wine there is truth, implying that he's speaking honestly. Although he's drunk, he's being honest. And Ringo counters with age quod agiis, meaning do what you do, suggesting that Doc should stick to drinking and not interfere. Doc then uses credat Judaeus appella non ego, meaning let the Jew appella believe it, not I, dismissing Ringo's words. Ringo responds with Juventus stolatorum magister, or youth is the teaching of fools, implying that Doc is naive. Finally, Doc concludes with in pace requiescat, meaning rest in peace, implying that it's Ringo's funeral if he draws his gun.
Wow. See, I just read that as nonsense. I didn't pick up on the stuff obviously. So. Awesome. Thanks for that. No, that probably means a lot more and makes a lot more sense now.
All right.
Awesome. So did you have a favorite line, or was that it? Just the line?
That's the scene. But I still think the we cross. I think that's my favorite line because it really sets up the tone for the whole movie. He's he's just barely tapping his gun, looking at him, sitting back and relaxing, and the guy's dangerous, but you still love him anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Which says a lot about me, but oh well.
No, I like that. I think he was set up as a kind of the badass that you root for as soon as he was like I said, he basically lays down the guns as if to be like, I don't even need them to kick your butt.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. So DK, what about you? Did you have a favorite character?
It's Doc again.
Surprising nobody, I think, overall. Yeah. A favorite moment or scene?
I just love that where they're going down to the OK Corral and you finally see them, like, that cover poster shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, that is pretty badass. The kind of hero walk moment. Cool. Yeah. And do you have a favorite line that we haven't brought up or that you can remember?
I do, but it has been brought up. It's the exact same line that Adrienne's just selected to.
Really?
I just don't think I could bear it.
Yeah, we're always such twins when we do this. We're twinners.
Yeah. Well, I haven't varied too much, except I have to say it was difficult not because there wasn't too much, but because I was an embarrassment of riches in this one. So for a favorite character, I could have picked so many of them, and I wouldn't have been sad at picking multiple of the characters. But in the end, I did obviously go with Doc Holliday as well, because, come on, he stands out in the film. He's badass. So of course I did. For the favorite moment or scene, again, there were multiple, but I narrowed it down to a scene that I shared with, again, DK when I was busy watching, which again it's an early Doc Holliday moment, and it's when he gets told, "Oh man, you're drunk, you're probably seeing double," and he just responds, "Well, I have 2 guns, one for each of you."
One for each of you.
Yeah, I love that. And, my favorite scene probably won't surprise anybody. So that was my favorite line, I should say. My favorite moment or scene won't surprise anybody. It's basically when Doc reveals himself to Johnny Ringo with the "I'm your Huckleberry," and But I also loved the shootout. I loved that moment with the spur cutting somebody's face. I could have picked again multiple things here. So that's. I think all of us have gone through our favorite things there. So the last thing to do is to go through our conclusions and our score out of 5 stars. Mine's usually long, and today is no exception because, again, I had a lot to say since it was the first time I'd seen the movie, so I'll probably save mine till last. Adrienne, did you want to go first with your conclusion?
I give it a 4. I think it was great. It's one of my favorites. I have it on VHS. I like this movie. I enjoyed it. I love sitting back and watching it. I wish there wasn't so many guns in it, but that's okay. It's just the time.
It's a Western.
It's a Western. But 4 out of 5.
Awesome. And DK, did you want to give your conclusion and score?
I like it. It's certainly a lot more frenetic than its competitor at the time. Some of the performances are really good. Some of them I can take or leave. It has a varying class of actors in this. As far as adhering to history, it's passable. But I mean, you're going to get that with any kind of adaptation from this period, regardless. I like it. It didn't seem to have as much impact on me this time as it did on that first time. As we mentioned earlier, it seemed to take a while to get into high gear, and just far too much Dana. In diametrically opposite to Adrienne, I just wanted more shootings. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Okay, so 3.5.
My man wanted more guns, more shooting.
Action and less girly romance, I think, is what he's basically trying to say at that point.
Stupid girls, they get in the way.
Cool.
You have no idea.
With apologies for my very long-winded conclusion, I will start and say this movie had a mountain to climb for me, as I said, since I'm not usually a great lover of Westerns, but to its credit, it made that climb and it's landed on the short list of my favorites. I went in knowing basically nothing about these historical figures, and now I'm genuinely intrigued enough to dig deeper into who they really were. From a critical point of view, it's not perfect. The film brings out plenty of emotion, but there's also an uncomfortable streak of sexism. Women here are often painted, as we've said, as prizes, delicate flowers, or the cause of a man's downfall. That's partly a sign of the times, though, and Josephine at least gets more depth, a little independence, and even a slightly subversive ending where she seems to step into a breadwinner role. I can see why people call the movie sprawling. It tries to fit in too much, and that leads to some odd pacing. For me, the Wyatt and Doc relationship needed more setup. The slow first half hour could have been trimmed to give that bond more weight. Likewise, the big denouement after Morgan's death feels crammed in when it should have arrived earlier and lasted longer. That said, the direction is impressively solid, especially given the behind-the-scenes chaos. Sure, it leans into cliches and sometimes tips towards cheese, but it also hits all the right emotional notes. The acting, for me, is excellent across the board, with little touches like Bill Paxton's scene standing out. And then there's Kilmer, Russell, and Delaney. They don't just act, they own the screen. Kilmer and Russell especially are so good, so iconic that they elevate the whole thing. So would I watch this again? Absolutely. In fact, the 4K is already ordered. I hit that cart faster than Wyatt Earp on a quick draw. So in the end, yeah, I did. So in the end, while it's not flawless, its highs hit like Doc's favorite liquor. So I'm seeing 4 stars, and I'm sliding a little extra down the bar for it. So Tombstone rides off with a solid 4.25 out of 5 stars total.
Nice, good job. Yeah. Oh, so, I'm glad.
I like this a lot. I really do. So thanks for picking it, because I really did enjoy it. And like I said, it's one of a very small number of Westerns that I would put up there as my favorites. So.
Well, do you understand why, like, it's on the list and so many people love it, and just seeing the 4 guys, even just in silhouette, who's who, and what's going on. So yeah, I love it. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did very much. So yeah, so putting those scores together, dividing by the 3 of us here, gives a final score for Tombstone of 3.9 out of 5. I mean. Essentially, we may as well have said 4, but I'll stick with the 3.9 for argument's sake, for the record. But it'll go on Letterboxd as a 4 because we can't be that precise. So yeah, that you're all happy with that score? I think that seems fair.
Absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah.
Awesome stuff. And that does it for our showdown with Tombstone. So a big thanks to our guest Adrienne for riding into town with us today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. I'm going to be quoting Val Kilmer for at least a week now. So, did you have anywhere that people could find you online, or anything you wanted to plug, anything like that?
Nope, I'm basically hiding. I hate everything right now. So the only thing that makes me happy is watching some movies, and
that's what we're here for. I can relate, and it's nice to get lost in movies and talk about them with friends for a little bit anyway. So always fun, and as always, of course, brilliant. Thanks to DK for going above and beyond for this one, and doing more research and keeping the bullets flying.
Yeah. Cheers, dude.
I was glad to be invited on again. Thank you guys so much. It was good
we'll see you again.
Hear your voices again. Awesome.
Yeah, so that's and obviously I'm assuming DK, you're still in hiding as well, more or less.
Yeah.
You could always reach me and DK via the the podcast socials anyway. So thanks to you out there for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, spread the word like a wanted poster across the frontier. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And again, you can find all of our hideouts, aka our socials, via the link tree in the episode description, or it will be flashing on screen if you're watching on YouTube. And until next time, keep your eyes on the cinematic frontier. And remember, here at Silver Screen, every film has a reckoning. Good night.
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Mike Wilson and DK. Behind the Scenes section by DK. Additional material by Mike Wilson. Follow us on social media, our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Link to all of these places can be found via the link tree listed in this episode's description. This podcast is a Media Matters original production, created, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. We'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, and share us around like a beloved old video cassette. We hope to see you next time for more movie magic. Until then, remember, life moves pretty fast, so stop and watch a movie now and then.